Hey, Mental Health Takeaway fans. Well, we hope you enjoyed part one of Aaron's episode, and it's not been too long a wait. But part two is ready for you now. So here's where we left off with Aaron last time when he was talking to you about some of his toolbox of tricks.
I do a lot of breathing apps, free stuff online, again, just to control your breathing. Get out in nature, change sort of like the place that you're at and actually see people. Sometimes I felt really, really shit. And I might be in an environment with certain people and still feel shit. And then you might go and do something else. And actually that somehow tick the box.
And this second part to the show is going to be just as entertaining, just as useful, packed full of really, really good information. So we're going to kick off with finding out about some of Aaron's fears in life. So check this out.
I had 3 fears in life.
This is going to be great.
3 main fears in life. And they were in this order. 1 was going to jail. 2 was being drafted up to the army, and 3 was getting someone pregnant.
We also have conversations about manliness, and Nibbo even calls the guest out on this one.
Now, that really confuses me as to what your view of manliness is, because it seems to me like your view of manliness when it comes to you is you have to be big and strong and fierce and a St. Bernard and all the rest of it, or a Mastiff or something. Whereas your view when it comes to other men is that they need to be socially able, a good communicator, kind, generous, and that those two are totally at odds when you apply it to you versus when you apply it to other people. And I think that's something that loads of men will do.
Oh, he's got you here, Hutch.
Oh,
he's got you on the ropes with this one. And obviously the aim of this very podcast is about sharing experiences in the hope that we can help people out there. So this sums up the pod really, really nicely.
If one person can take something from this, then that's all we were asking for, isn't it?
So
absolutely.
Essentially what we're saying is we want to be the rocket up men's arses all around the world. To talk about mental health, obviously, to talk about mental health. So part 2 is going to have all the usual things. We're going to look at would you rathers, and for that we're going to cover anxiety and frustration as our negative one. And then we're going to look at socially confident versus body confident for our positive would you rather, as well as the advice we would give 18-year-old Aaron, or he would give 18-year-old Aaron, and what he might ask 80-year-old. And then obviously we've got all of our takeaways summarised in the show. It's an action-packed part 2. We hope you enjoy it as much as the first one. We had loads of great feedback. If you do enjoy it, it'd be great if you could share it, get the message out there, because it might just help that one person that might need to hear this message, or they can check out some of the other episodes available. Enjoy the show, guys. Awesome. Right, we're going to move on to our next Would You Rather. We're going to start with a negative one so that we can come back to a positive one. I think it's great that people have got the context now about some of your backstory, and you know, I think probably your answers might make a bit more sense to people now. So we're not going to touch on guilt. You've just said about guilt being a really awful one, so and not choosing that. So my Would You Rather for you, though, is would you rather feel anxiety or would you rather feel frustration?
Well, I guess it'd have to be frustration because the anxiety is so bad for me.
Okay.
When it happens, I guess if I was to dissociate it from my back and I was anxious about something else, so it's more of a rational kind of thought process, might be slightly better. So if I'm anxious about a presentation I've got to do at work, for example, or I'm frustrated because I'm not getting something that I need, I would still choose frustration. I think because anxiety is it's not a nice place to be in. It's quite a hard thing to get out of. Whereas with frustration, there's often you can often act with a clearer mind. I think.
Okay.
You can step back and you can try to do something about that frustration. And I feel like frustration's got energy to it.
Yeah,
it's just you've got some fight in you and stuff. Whereas with the anxiety, it's you just sort of clam up. It's not. Yeah.
Aaron, I wonder where you stand on an idea that I heard recently that mental health journeys are always exactly that. They're a journey. And this whole idea of people that battle anxiety, and it was someone that I heard talking about that, actually had to come to the acceptance that you're never, well, not never, but you're not going to have massive long periods of your life where you don't feel any anxiety. Because imagine going 10 years and saying, I haven't felt anxious in 10 years, like having not felt fear in 10 years. That's always going to be a part of life. Well, his take was that anxiety is a natural part of life, very much in that sort of the chimp paradox approach to things, that actually part of anxiety can be about keeping us safe and ensuring that we survive the day. I wondered what you thought on that. About does anxiety have to be inevitable, or is it just inevitable in small doses and you're trying not to let it grow to an unmanageable level?
That's a great question. When you said it, I strangely thought about something I read, one of the SAS soldier sort of biographies. I've read quite a few of those, strangely. It's my quest to become more manly. But but in that, they talk about their ability to train themselves not to feel pain. And I've always wondered whether that's actually possible or whether that's just some bravado, because I don't think you can numb raw emotions like that. I think what you can do is recognize them and control them better. And I think that's really important. And it goes back to some of the really sort of quite damaging stuff that I was told early days of my back is it will never get better by so-called professionals, now that's what they've been taught and stuff, but define what better is. I mean, I'm 44 now. There's probably not many men at 44 who have lived such an active life that get out of bed with a sort of like a spring and don't feel aches and pains, so what is better? You need to define your goals, I guess, and mine were to get back to surfing and riding and stuff. So I have to be better. Yes, there's things I don't want to do because I don't want to jeopardize anything. But, I think ultimately, I'm going off the question slightly, but, you will get sort of better and improve, whether it's anxiety or pain or whatever else, but you're still going to have that physical pain, or in this case, that anxiety to a degree. But I think it's understanding that, it's there, but you just got better ways of dealing with it. And as we were talking about earlier, it's not focusing on that. I think that's the critical thing, is not focusing on that and letting that drive your life. But it's there in the background.
Yeah, good answer. Thank you.
Yeah, it's really interesting as well. Again, I'm kind of looking at Nibbo of this one. What we're tending to find with every episode where we talk to different men is that their choice is kind of led by what they feel they can do something about the most. And you said the same. You said, I feel like I could do stuff with frustration to break it down better than I could with anxiety. It's just interesting. And, that's something that Nibbo said early on in this process, that actually he felt men, I mean, it's the very basis of the show, the takeaways, that because he felt that actually men kind of gravitate to, wanting to go and do something. And, and I think you've given so many takeaways already that people will be able to try out, the day after this episode goes out.
Yeah, so, which is great. But I feel that some people need a kickstart. And again, the people that I've referred to you, Brad, I've been preaching about my own experiences. I haven't gone into that person and said, hey, what's troubling you at the moment? I've just said, this is a life-changing sort of journey that I've been on recently. And then they just drop. There's a little seed of something, and then I pick it up and I'm like, something's not quite right with this person, and then you ask them a question, and then all of a sudden the floodgates come out, and then they're willing to try stuff. But it's almost like they need, I don't know whether they need some sort of male reassurance that, hey, it's okay to do these things, and the outcome's going to be bloody great when you get there. Or what, but I do wonder, would those people have proactively sought out outside help without me in that instance, or one of the millions of other men opening up to them, kind of saying, I've gone through some really what I'd consider quite embarrassing things and really shitty things, and them going, oh fuck yeah, like I'm not unique in this, and it is okay for me to do this, and then they take that really important first step.
Yeah.
What I'm going to say is that Brad and I don't make any money from this podcast, sadly, although sponsorship opportunities are available. We do this as a passion project, and we do it to help people. And when you're saying people need a bit of a kickstart, or men need someone to show them the way to do that. That is what this podcast is all about. It's in today's episode, it's 3 functioning men that are happy and healthy and living our lives well, but we've all got various experience of our own mental health as well as other people's mental health. And here we are having this conversation about it, showing that it doesn't need to be a big, scary subject. So what I would implore our listeners to do now is, if you have the ability to share the link to this episode on social media, and I'm not doing this so that we can be rock stars and so we can make money from it. We don't make money from it. We're doing it to help. But if the listeners to this podcast could share this episode, there may well be someone who's connected to them on social media who sees this episode and this is their kickstart. We would never know about it. We'd never be able to take credit for it. But the hope is that this becomes some people's kickstart. Brad loves the phrase, the thin end of the wedge. We're just the start point, or we have the ability to be their start point in their journey of thinking, well, I might listen to a podcast about mental health, then I might read a book about mental health, then maybe I'll go to a free group meeting to start addressing my mental health. And that's what we'd love people to do, to just share this out a little bit so that people have more access to it.
And I think that's why I'm so willing to come on here, as are your other guests, because as I said to you earlier on, it's, when I felt I had something that I could share with people that would improve their lives, having gone through the journey I went through, which I wouldn't wish on anyone in those sort of dark times, you just think, if one person can take something from this, then that's all you're asking for, isn't it? Really?
So
absolutely.
Essentially, what we're saying is we want to be the rocket up men's arses all around the world. To talk about mental health, obviously, to talk about mental health. Right, cool. Aaron, we're going to come on to your last Would You Rather. Last Would You Rather round. And again, it's a positive slant on this one. We talked about confidence, Nibbo and I, and came up with this, Nibbo came up with this really nice idea, actually, about would you rather feel socially confident or body confident?
Socially confident or body confident? I ponder on that one because I'm pretty socially confident, although awkward in certain environments, as I think everybody are. The body confident is an interesting one because if you said body confident to anybody else, there'd be how other people see you. But I also sit there and think in terms of confidence in my own body and the ability for it not to break. But I would take the former in the question. I think socially, I mean, I'm not vain whatsoever. Well, I guess everyone is to a degree, but I'm most of my clothes I wear are sort of like picked up off the floor. I smell them once, and if they smell all right, then that's okay. But I mean, socially confident would be my preference. I think, I love having an energy and seeing that people are enjoying that energy, whether they enjoy what I'm talking about or not. Sometimes it's irrelevant. But, I don't sort of go out and sit there and think that I want people to sort of look at me and think, oh, wow, look at that body. I think everybody has stuff about their body that they want to change, and improve on and stuff. And I think a lot of mine comes back to the size of me, like I've said, and this perception of men being men if they're big and muscly. And I feel like a lot of my masculinity has been crushed somewhat in the past by not being this big, strong man. And I've not sort of looked to sort of take those risks to prove that because I'm concerned about sort of hurting my back by lifting heavy things and stuff. So, I think it'd be great to sort of like be body confident and sort of walk into a room and think like I'm the sort of like the picture of male health in that sense. But I actually think one really important thing in this day and age is that we're starting to flip that. And when I talk to women about this, actually, I think they're more on the side that socially confident is more of a man than body confident. And it's actually the men that are probably stuck, it's probably men looking at men, like heterosexual men probably looking at other men, sort of like oogling a little bit more, thinking, oh yeah, I'd like those biceps. Whereas the girls don't really give a shit. They like to see a man that is kind, caring, confident, in sort of how they perceive themselves. And I'm not doing this for a perception for women to be attracted to, but what I guess I'm trying to say is that I think it is really important that we recognise that masculinity is not about how we necessarily look, but it's about how we act and behave, and that the modern man is not the same as they used to be. So I'm going to go socially.
Right. I need to come in there, Aaron, because there's some really interesting stuff. I don't know if you've noticed it. Brad, I don't know if you've noticed it. So what you've just surmised there is saying that modern day masculinity is about being not necessarily socially confident, but socially able. And when you said about being kind and caring, basically being the modern man, and it's less about having big biceps and being that kind of slightly toxic view of masculinity. However, throughout this episode, you've said that you wouldn't be one of the manly dogs, and you said that with some sort of bitterness and resentment. You've got this internalized view that you're not manly. You just said in that same answer there that because of your back injury, you are not able to take the risks to prove your manliness. Now, that really confuses me as to what your view of manliness is, because it seems to me like your view of manliness when it comes to you is you have to be big and strong and fierce and a St. Bernard and all the rest of it, or a Mastiff or something. Whereas your view when it comes to other men is that they need to be socially able, a good communicator, kind, generous, and that those two are totally at odds when you apply it to you versus when you apply it to other people. And I think that's something that loads of men will do.
Oh, he's got you here, Hutch. Oh, he's got you on the ropes with this one.
Yeah, true. I mean, I guess maybe a lot of that is just sort of like where I perceive my own weaknesses. I feel like confident in my the size, like saying, like my sort of like, I'm confident around people to talk and have fun and communicate. I love being a dad, and sort of like would rank myself in the top 1% of dads in Perranporth. And I think those kind of things that I think are important to me, and they're more important to me. But then in the back of your mind, you've still got, hey, how's everybody else? Maybe I'm preaching for the things that I think are important, but in the back of my mind, I'm wondering, how does everyone else perceive sort of like success and sort of like in terms of being a man and stuff?
Well, you said at the start, when we talked about your takeaways, you revealed that you are a father of 2 boys, 9 and 6. What do you want them to think of as manliness? What example do you want to set them as a man?
That's a great question, because, again, one of my takeaways from your episode, was when you said about your 80-year-old self. And I flipped that round to not how would I want my future self to sort of be treated or whatever else, but how would my boys at 44, if they were in any of the situations that I find myself in terms of how I'm being treated or how happy I am or anything else, because they're the most important thing to me in the world, how would I want them to be? So any question related to them, I think is really strong, and I think people should do that if they have got kids, and that's the most important thing to them, or their partner if they haven't got kids, is think about the situation I'm in. If you haven't got kids, if you're feeling that, if your partner was feeling that, how would you feel and how could you help them is really important. So going back to your question though, in terms of like my kids, I want my kids to remember me as, I don't really care how they remember me physically, so long as I can pick them up and they can ride me like a horse. I just want them to know me as, which they still do. I just want them to remember me as being like really approachable and fun. I'm borderline irresponsible father.
Yes,
they're the best kind.
One of Kobe, my eldest son's mates, was over the other day, and he said to Becky, it must be really hard for you, like having 3 boys to look after. And we sat around having dinner. This is like a 9-year-old child, and I was like, where's this come from? It's like some observation, isn't it? So,
I
mean,
hope
it is
you kicked
true.
him in the shin.
On his way out. But it is that, I think, like, the boys say to me, like, "Oh, Daddy, you old?" And I said, "Oh, I'm not old. Age is not a number. Being old is not a number. It's an attitude, and I think that is really important as well.
I'm going to turn this into a quick round robin because I have a son. I also have a daughter, and I think she's a massive factor in this too. But Brad, I want to know how you want your son to think of you, or one of, like, literally a key lesson. My one that I try to pass on to my kids, which I got from thinking about it. I think I probably got it from Roald Dahl's Matilda, where at the start the dad is telling Matilda, "I'm big, you're small, I'm right, you're wrong, and there's nothing you can do about it." I love apologizing to my kids. I love showing that an authority figure is not someone who just says, "This is the way it is, deal with it." But an authority figure is someone who is able to say, "I made a mistake there, and I'm really sorry." Not because I want to be subservient to them, but because I want to teach them that a confident person is someone who can hold their hands up and go, "I'm sorry, made a mistake, I acted improperly there, and I owe you an apology." Regardless of the fact that you're 8 and I'm 44, that doesn't mean that they don't deserve an apology, and actually bigger, older, stronger, wiser, employed, adults versus children can still apologise. So, Brad, I wondered if you had a similar thing for you and Bowden.
Yeah, I probably do. Probably going down a similar lines to irresponsibility of Aaron, and not as wise, and because I really like yours actually, and I thought as you were talking, I can think about times where I've apologised to Bowden where I've got stuff wrong, but I think it is about. We're really active and busy and healthy. Like I want him to recognise that that's important, but not healthy as in like you need to look this way and as soon as you're big enough we'll get you in the gym. That's not it. It's about that healthy, like actually, like, life is out there and you want to be healthy so that you can go and grab it. Yes. Opportunity. We're always out, and if there's an opportunity to go, like yesterday, going back to the seals, it was like I was just like, mate, like, look, wind's perfect for it, like the sea's flat, calm, we got to go, let's go, like it'll be, and he's like, yeah, cool, let's do it. And I think that is how I want him to be. I don't want him to be the whole like, right, mate, you need to entertain yourself because I've got jobs to do. Like, actually, it's just about life's there, mate. Let's absolutely grab it, and those little opportunities for him to reflect, like with the seals and the people that ran away from the great white seal. So yeah, I think that's my kind of take. Fun and playfulness.
I think the key word for me is inspire.
Okay.
On that, like in terms of like kids and people's interpretation of how they'd want to inspire, like, their kids is obviously different.
Yeah.
And that's absolutely fine. But I think the thing is, like, however you got to determine in what way you want to inspire your kids.
Yeah.
I remember I went to a wedding years ago, and the groom chose his dad as his best man, which, and again, I apologise to my wife for trying to be my kids' best friends, but it is often like that. And I'm not saying that's a great way to parent for sure, but as a 30-year-old man or whatever he was getting married, to still at that age look up to his dad and say, "I want you standing there as someone who's inspired me through my life." I think that's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, very powerful.
Yeah, cool. All right, awesome. Right, Nibbo, I think I'm going to hand over to you for dessert questions here.
Righto, sorry, I was lost deep in the chat.
Nodded off over there.
No, just this conversation's inspiring me. Aaron, I suspect that you've given these questions some thought, given that you may have appeared on the show before and we fucked up the recording. But the 8-year-old you walks into the room, just totally unannounced, massive surprise, but there he is. You've got a minute to tell him whatever you want to tell him. What advice would you pass down to yourself at 8 years old?
I have given this one some thought, and I gave an answer which you can check to see whether it's the same. But I think it's pretty much is the same. But I just want to expand on it because I think I kind of was quite blasé about the answer being nothing.
Okay.
But interesting. That's almost been solidified with the previous guests that you've had on. That when you've asked them what they would say to themselves when they were younger, it's almost like we're looking back and again we're talking about that guilt on sort of a particular route that we've passed. I think you might have said, Nibbo, that when you were 18 you would want to tell yourself to not be such a knob, and I think Binder said that as well. And that's quite interesting because I think that's part of different stages of growing up. We look back, I look back at some things and I'm like, oh my God, that's so embarrassing. And you just hope people don't remember it. But that's kind of like this sort of stages that we have to go through. And we all do things when we're younger, even when the age we're at, and we will do in the future, which we're not proud of, and we might hurt people and stuff, but no one lives a perfect life. And I think for me, in my personal journey, the big thing that I want to get home about is not looking back thinking that you've caused any of the problems. Life just throws all sorts of shit at you.
Yeah.
And you can't necessarily, like, I've always sat there and thought, what if I didn't go for that bike ride, and come off? My life would have been so different. But then, do you know what? It probably would have happened again. Like, I had a fundamental, like, the way I grew basically was quite right at my back, I discovered, so fundamentally it would have happened anyway. But it was always that what if, and so if you ask me if I could go back, my immediate thought is, what could I do to go back and prevent that massive fuck up I had in my life? But the chances are it would have happened anyway. So in terms of reflecting back as me as a child, at 8 years old, I was quite an anxious child actually. I was confident in my own areas, in my primary school at that age. I was confident in my groups, and I was good at sports and stuff, and everything else. But I had a lot of issues, but I don't think anything I could say to myself would have changed the way that I've turned out, really.
Can I ask you, Aaron, does knowing, or at least thinking, because we can't know, but does thinking that there's nothing you actually could have done to have prevented that back injury, because the way you're built, the way your life is, the way you have to have a fulfilled life involves these medium to high risk activities, does knowing that your back injury was actually unavoidable help you deal with the occurrence of your back injury at all?
I think it does, but I'm still not necessarily 100% sure in that belief that I've just said. But yeah, it does. If I can believe it and I can accept it, then absolutely. And I think that's the critical thing for everybody. But again, kind of diverging from the question slightly, like when I've had accidents subsequently, and I've hurt myself surfing, I've come off a bike and I might have spoken to somebody. I remember speaking to Brad once, and because I'm always like, oh, that's it, right, I'm going to sell my bike, I shouldn't be doing this. And he's like, mate, this is who you are. This is what you enjoy in life. And when my mum says that to me, that's like gold, because it's almost like that seal of approval. And when my wife says it to me, like I came home the other day and I was really upset, and my wife, bless her, she's like, this is what happens. It just happens. She didn't like have a go at me. She's like, this is what happens with what you do. You said you've been pushing it. It's bound to happen. Don't worry about it. You'll get better. And it'll happen again. It's almost like, accepting whatever somebody's gone through, that you haven't caused it, really, and no matter if you could have gone back in time, unless it was a very unfortunate sort of like freak occurrence of accident or something like that, it's like it's just the path that would have happened anyway. And that going forward, whatever you're suffering from, depression, anxiety, whatever else, you will have those bouts again. But again, it's nothing that you can necessarily sort of like look back and say, if only ...
Yeah, strong answer. He's gone. 8-year-old Aaron disappears out the room. 18-year-old Aaron comes in. So he's 18. He's not quite going for a Sunday night curry yet, but those days are just around the corner for him. Is there anything you'd pass on to him?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it's the same stuff. I think the only thing that Brad would probably be testament to is I had quite a lot of opportunities when I was younger that I didn't take up. in experiences.
I'm intrigued. You can't not tell us, even if we cut it out of the show.
I was pretty useless with women, to be honest. So I would have liked to have just had a little bit. I think I still am, to be honest. I know I've got a wife, but yeah, I would have liked to have just had like a little bit more.
Explain the fear. Explain the fear.
I had 3 fears in life.
This is going to be great.
3 main fears in life, and they were in this order. 1 was going to jail. 2 was being drafted up to the army, and 3 was getting someone pregnant. and they were all pretty close to each other and how much I feared them.
So just because he's being all blasé about it, Nibbo, right? All right, Aaron, is a handsome man. All right,
Agreed.
Going back to university, he was very popular with the ladies. You know, he was like the polar opposite of me and you when we were at university doing our teacher training.
We were so bad at it.
So literally, like, we were in the surf club together, and in our final year of uni, like, me and Aaron were like joint presidents of the surf club, which meant essentially we were the 2 coolest guys in the entire university. And
one of you was.
And it was amazing. You know, we had, wasn't it, on our 3rd year when we took over the surf club, and we generated this mass interest, and it was the biggest it had ever been. It was amazing.
I think we doubled it, didn't we? Yeah.
There were so many hot chicks that came to join the surf club, and every one of them wanted to sleep with Aaron. And he wouldn't.
I'm not sure about that.
But... all right. Well, most of them, and certainly, a lot of them, and certainly some very hot ones would. And Aaron would go back, but would never remove his pants for fear of getting them pregnant. And then,
we are cutting this out, aren't we?
No.
And just remember, we'd all be catching up the next day or something, like all the boys. And we'd be like, did you go back to hers? And he'd be like, yeah, massive grin. We'd be like, oh my God. And then he'd just be like, yeah, I didn't take my pants off. Because he just in case his pants hit the floor and instantly they became pregnant. And it became a massive comedy thing, wouldn't it? So I agree with you.
Even one of the girls, do you remember Danielle?
Oh yeah.
Ooh, we got names.
She used to refer to them as the safety shorts. So she was taking them back, and I was like, "Yeah." She goes, "Are the safety shorts coming off?" I'm like,
yeah. But, I agree. I think 18-year-old you is now dancing out of the room, knowing that information. That it's got. Yeah, it's
but
all.
I don't
it's
know.
all
I
to
probably
come.
still would do exactly the same. But I mean, the other thing. I mean, it wasn't just women, because that makes me sound like a right slut. I think I got confidence throughout my university years to do more. Like, me and Brad went travelling straight after uni, which was great. But I think as like in my teens, before I went to university, I missed out on certain stuff because I was like kind of scared to maybe put myself out into an uncomfortable situation, like nights out or trips or this, that, or the other. But again, I don't really regret it, because I think when I hit my 20s, that time was there for me. And my mum always said, she's like, I'm so surprised that you and Owen, my brother, turned out the way you have. She would have flipped us around, because my brother was really outgoing. Like, he used to go on school camps and he'd go for nights out in his early teens, whereas I was sort of like, you know, at home doing my homework still when I was like 17 on a Friday night, and never want to leave home. But as adults, I've been way more sort of adventurous, perhaps, not to sort of undermine what he's done in his life. He's done some incredible stuff, but, you know, I've done lots of traveling. I've moved away from home. I've been a little bit more of a nomad in that sense. And, you know, I think your time to experience that comes, and mine came at a great time in my 20s. If it had come in my younger years, maybe I wouldn't have had those adventures when I was in my 20s. So
strong answers, Aaron.
Great.
Right, 18-year-old you has gone, and he's gone with that gem of advice in his ear to maybe take a chance or two where you didn't. And now 80-year-old
I think he left
you...
his pants in the room, didn't he? He just left his
They're on the
hat. He's not wearing them ever again.
I've double knotted them.
The only pants I've ever seen with belt loops, but that's impressive. So he's gone, and now 80-year-old you comes into the room, or the room you're in anyway, and you've got the opportunity to ask him whatever you want to ask him, but he's only here for a minute.
I should, to be consistent, say I wouldn't need to know anything, because I've said obviously that things
we
would go.
live and we learn, Aaron.
Yeah, but I would have to. I would just ask: is there anything I need to know? I think, and I think that wise old man would know if there was anything I needed to know. Because as I say, even though I feel like I'm well informed with the tools to guide my life, I'm still cocking up every day, every week, every month in all aspects of life. And I hope I don't make a mistake that I do regret on a big stage. I don't think I will, because I feel sort of well informed in sort of like my thought processes and everything else. But it'd always be nice to have that sort of security to ask that question. But I wouldn't. I'm not the sort of person that would. People say, "Hey, would you like to go forward or back in time or whatever else?" I wouldn't go forward in time by choice and ask anything, because I think life just takes the way it wants to go. And if he's going to tell me something that I can't avoid because that's just the way it's going to go, then I'd rather just not know, to be honest.
Yeah, well, that ties in with I didn't expect you to actually ask 80-year-old you anything, and I kind of feel as if, given that 44-year-old you didn't really want to tell 8 or 18-year-old you much, really, I don't think 80-year-old you would tell you, even if you did ask him. But the thing that I think is really powerful out of what you've just said, which is what I think a load of men need to hear, is that someone like you, who externally, if someone didn't know about your anxiety, if somebody didn't know about your back trouble, then they might just see you as being this guy who's just smashed life from the starting gun all the way through. To hear someone like you say, I fuck up every day, and I'll continue to fuck up every day, and I just hope I don't fuck up too big, and I hope that 80-year-old me would tell me if I do end up getting drafted into the army and then going to prison.
And getting someone pregnant.
And getting someone pregnant in prison, which is a hell of an effort, I tell you. But if anyone can do it, it's Hutch.
Yeah.
I just think other men hearing you say, I fuck up every day. But from our external view of you is a successful guy, but here he is saying, I fuck up every day. So all these other guys, me included, that think, I fucked up again today. Well, everyone does. That's fine. But don't heap guilt on yourself for that, because that's just corrosive and not helpful, and everyone does it anyway. It's normal.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Cool.
Good stuff.
Awesome.
Bradley, into the takeaways?
Yeah, let's get the takeaways going. I heard the doorbell.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Hutch, your food's here. Let's pretend it's an appropriate time for you to be digging into a curry with the poppadoms, the sauces, the naans, and all the rest of it. So food's here. We need to now generate takeaways, and really this is kind of the purpose of these episodes, which is that we can finish off with little nuggets that people can apply to their life or apply to their mindset and use the very next day. So Brad, do you want to lead on them? And then shall I follow you up?
I'll go. I mean, again, I think, it's been a great episode, Aaron. I think you've given so much stuff. It actually sort of looking at my notes and trying to narrow down my list is pretty difficult. I think a couple of things that you mentioned that are really important were when you started to talk about sharing and acceptance. Because I think that's really important, and I think maybe that is one of the barriers to men talking. We know that typically we don't reach out. You describe kind of your experiences and something that you'd want to change, which is the same that Nibbo and I want to change. Is for men to be proactive rather than reactive. when it comes to talking about mental health. So if we can just talk about mental health all the time, then we can kind of nip things in the bud easier. So that kind of acceptance, to be able to say whatever's going on, fucking hell, it's a bit shit at the minute. Like, whatever it is, it's a bit shit at the minute. And just to be able to accept that, because that might be the first step in, going and then finding the person, whoever that person is, that safe environment that you talked about, reaching out to friend. In your case, it was your brother. I think it's important to recognize it doesn't have to be our partner. I think sometimes we can feel pressured that actually maybe it should be our partner, but it doesn't have to be. Again, I feel like I'm just giving all of your highlights, but so many. I liked your two-step approach of step 1, unloading, and step 2, changing your mindset, where you talked about focusing on the problem and focusing on the solution. I thought that was really good, and I love your 3 good things that you try and generate with friends. Just tell me your top 3 things of the day. I really like that also. So yeah, I'll probably leave it there, although my list still goes on. But that's what I'll end on. Nibbo?
Thanks, Bradley. So again, I just want to echo what Brad said, that there's loads, heaps here. One of the ones that I underlined, but I'm not going to make it a big one, was just the power of you remaining optimistic throughout your journey, and that you feel as if that remaining optimistic, which isn't possible for everyone, and I get that, but when people have the opportunity to remain optimistic, I think that's really important. But one of the things you said right at the start of the show was about, in whichever way you can, try to understand others in order to be able to understand yourself. Now, we had a show where we had a woman on, not representing all womankind, but just kind of giving us a female perspective. And we talked then that actually understanding the female perspective helps us to understand the male perspective better. And that sometimes understanding something else helps you understand your problem better. So yeah, I thought what you said about understanding others in order to understand yourself was really important. And then this one, I don't quite know how to funnel this into a takeaway. I suppose the thing to do would be for our listeners to ask themselves the question of, do they have a disproportionately or a disproportionate internalized view of their own manliness? That thing that we touched on with you, of you felt as if you should be one particular type of man, and that equated to manliness, but that everybody else had permission to be this other type of man, which, interestingly enough, I'm just realizing now, that other type of man that you thought everyone else had permission to be, that socially able, energetic man, that's the things you said you were good at already. That's the things you said that you can do. Whereas you felt as if your version of manliness had to be a big guy, had to be what else? Had to take risks in order to prove your manliness. There were a couple of other bits in there. I'm sure I'll hear it when I listen through again. But my takeaway would be just for our listeners to ask themselves the question: am I expecting myself to be a different type of manliness compared to the standards that I accept from everybody else? And if I accept those standards from everybody else, why can't I accept those standards for myself? So that'd be my takeaway.
Yeah, awesome. And then Hutch, just to come back to you,
Yeah, cool. So I'm going to actually throw one more thing in, which hopefully I'm allowed to do.
Of course.
Which popped up is, and then I've got one key sort of takeaway for things we talked about is this idea again for my personal journey. And again, I think I just want to reiterate, this is my personal journey, and everybody's journey is completely different. And for anybody listening to this, trying to help somebody else, it's accepting that, you've got to understand that everybody's journey is different, and that person might take time for you to work out how to relate to best. It is quite important. And one of the key things that I needed for me was I needed a physical therapist, basically, to tell me I could move if that makes sense.
Mm.
So I went to this again, I had this great hands-on therapy and stuff. And when that guy said to me, hey, you can do these things, because he understood anatomy, it gave me the confidence to do it. Whereas if I'd gone to like a traditional talking counsellor, for example, and they said, hey, you can move, I'd be like, well, you don't have a clue what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And again, this is reinforced. I went to a strength and conditioning coach, top guy. The first session, he threw a pen on the floor, told me to pick it up. I was there dressed up thinking I was going to be lifting weights to get strong. And I picked the pen up like it was like 100 kilos. And he was like, what the fuck are you doing? You're bending down in such a weird way. It's a pen. The first thing we need to do is to get you moving properly. And we spent probably our first 3 or 4 sessions talking. Every time I turned up in my gym kit, and he had all the weights and everything else in the studio, but we just talked. And he told me the same stuff that I've been told by other people, but because I trusted him in my own body, it enabled me to act upon that. So even if you're working with somebody or you are that person and you've been told stuff, you might have to hear it from several different sources until it really works for you.
Yeah, great point.
Yeah, the thing I want to jump in and say there, and I don't want to make this awkward by sharing too much, but I had a small course of intensive CBT in the wake of a diagnosis of complex PTSD a little while back, and it was to do with family stuff. And the therapist said something to me that other people had said, and actually, after the other people saying it didn't really mean anything, because they were family members, they were friends, they were colleagues even, because people knew about it. But it was when the CBT practitioner said to me, you're a good dad and you did the right thing, I broke down and cried hearing that. I'd heard it loads of times before, but when I heard it from them, that really struck something inside me, in very much the same way as you hearing from a S&C coach. Yeah, you can move. So sometimes I think, maybe people just need to keep on looking until they find that voice that tells them what they need to hear in the way they need to hear it.
Yeah,
for sure. And then the second thing, so there's 2, is just guilt. This idea, again, we've talked about it, but it's to be kind to yourself.
Yeah.
And I think the only way that we can get through any sort of mental health challenge is you have to be kind to yourself, and you have to recognize, for me, like guilt is a big thing. You have to recognize what your sort of weakness is almost. And that weakness isn't anxiety, that's the condition. The part of the weakness though is the guilt and how that will beat me up, and that's something that I can control and work on. So for somebody else it could be something else, but it's understanding your mind and understanding what's almost like you're sort of like Achilles heel that you really sort of beat yourself up about. Where you should actually step back and say, I need to be kind to myself about that. And sometimes that's where you need social reinforcement. So you will go to a friend, a bit like when I said, I come off the bike. If my mom says to me, or my friend or my wife says to me, it's okay, that gives me permission to say, yes, it's all right. And
permission.
Again, I think that's really, really important. But you have to understand, out of all the things going on in your head, the crazy things, you have to pick that biggest battle that will make the biggest difference. If you get either self reassurance or external reassurance to help you sort of over that blip.
Yeah, huge Hutch. That whole idea of permission is a massive one.
Mega.
Yes.
Wow, what an episode.
Indeed, you got well past my bedtime.
Well past your bedtime. Yeah, apologies about that. But
it's my fault for talking too much.
Yeah, you got to take a third of the responsibility for that. I'm sorry it has gone on a bit late, but actually I think it's been great. It's been so the stuff you've talked about has been amazing. And there's heaps in there. And I think the takeaways summarized at the end are really good, but actually there's stacks more within the episode.
All I was going to say, Hutch, is we touched on it in the episode, but like I said, Brad and I aren't getting rich off the back of this anytime soon. We really are just doing this to see if we can help people, and your contributions will help the people listening. From what I know of the people that do listen, I can already picture numerous people that will really benefit from hearing the stuff you've had to share. So on their behalf and from myself, thank you ever so much for being on the show.
Yeah, not at all. I loved it. Really enjoyed it.
Well, we hope you enjoyed part 2, guys. It really was a great episode, full of takeaways that you can take. I think our takeaway summary at the end doesn't even come close to covering all of the great bits of advice that we got in there. So thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Please like and share, spread the word, get the message out about the pod, because we want to get it to as many people as possible so that we can help as many people as possible. Thanks for listening. Tune in next time.